Hello everybody, welcome to Deluxe Collectibles, and today we're going to be going over some brand new LEGO Ninjago information regarding Season 15 or SEABOUND, whichever you would like to call it, because it doesn't really have an official title at the moment, and we don't even really know what season number it is going to wind up being, but there has been some information circulating the Ninjago community regarding the titles of all of the episodes for SEABOUND, so I wanted to cover it here on the channel and kind of discuss what I think the validity of these episode titles could be, because of course this isn't official information directly from LEGO, it's just something that's been circulating its way through the community, and I wanted to discuss whether or not I think these are real titles and why, or whether or not I think they are going to wind up being false and that there will be something different, and what this means for the length of the season as well. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Alright, so to get started here, we're going to begin by going over the image that has been kind of circulating its way through the Ninjago community, and at the top of the image here, it says Ninjago, the island, and SEABOUND, so of course that tells us that there is a very close connection between those two, and that's kind of why they're pairing them together within this image, so there's definitely the possibility of them actually being within the same season, so they could both even wind up being considered Season 14 together by the community, or if you're going by LEGO's actual season numbering, then they could potentially both be Season 3 as well. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with that, I have made a separate video kind of going over the season numbering for LEGO and then from the fans' perspective and kind of comparing the two of them, so you can be sure to check that video out. But kind of just staying on topic here, I think that there's definitely a possibility of there being such a close connection between the two sort of like seasons here, and I think that could wind up just being that they are actually the same season. But then if we move forward to the episode titles here, the first four in the list here are actually the episodes from the island. So we have Uncharted, The Keepers of the Amulet, The Gift of Jay, and The Tooth of WOJIRA'S. So of course those are all just the island episode titles, and those are from 161 to 164 right there. So of course SEABOUND is going to pick up with 165, and then it is going to be running all the way down to 170. And those episodes that we have here, we do have all of the titles for them, so I kind of want to go through each of them. We're going to read them all out, and then I'm going to kind of discuss where I think like these episode titles could have come from, what they're going to mean for the season, and if I think they could have just been thought up by some fan, or if I think they are actually going to end up being official titles. So going through them here, we have the Endless Oceans, we have the Storm Amulet, Sea Kingdom, Disrupted Element, WOJIRA'S Wrath, and then Master of Water. So of course, just at first sort of glance here, these episode titles seem pretty official because it does stay pretty on brand with what we sort of know about SEABOUND thus far, with it being sort of a Nia-centric season. So it does make sense from the titles that we're seeing here, and of course it lines up with what we already know for this season, and that includes a description that I have gone over in previous videos, but I'll reiterate it here if you don't know it. And it says, when Nia's powers are disrupted, the ninjas set off in search of answers and find themselves at the bottom of Endless Oceans, where they discover that her powers are linked to an ancient mythical creature. So of course that creature that they seem to be referring to would be WOJIRA, of course, and that kind of relates back to some of the episode titles here as well, and them going into these Endless Oceans, which even within that description they specifically say Endless Oceans, and then as well as also having the disrupted powers as well mentioned within the description, and that being one of the episode titles as well, with the disrupted element. So it really is lining up very well, and this could be taken kind of two ways from two different perspectives here of that. Of course, that description seems to have a lot of validity to it, and it seems like, of course, with these episode titles kind of like reflecting it really well, it seems like it would just be a no-brainer that these are the official episode titles. But you could also look at it in the way that, of course, a fan has read this description and then they just thought, okay, well, those are just going to be the episode titles right there. So we don't really know. Personally, I think I'm leaning more towards the episode titles being official, because it just seems like they do fit really well, and it seems to almost line up as well, sort of telling its own sort of story here from what we can take away from the episode titles here and the ordering of them as well. And what I mean by that is basically that, of course, the first episode here is Endless Oceans. That would, of course, mean them sort of embarking into the ocean here, kind of going to figure out what's gone on with Nia and what are they going to find within these oceans. Of course, we're going to know more once I've seen, like, the finale of the island, but we're going to find out, and I'm assuming that's kind of what that means. And then the Storm Amulet, of course, we already know about that from the island, so it's got to be something to relate to that, and maybe it somehow unlocks a way into these endless oceans, or they discover another amulet possibly within the ocean. So we don't really know at this point, but it could definitely be something relating to that, of course. And then with the Sea Kingdom title right here, of course, that just makes a lot of sense. I'm assuming we're going to find some sort of like civilization in these endless oceans here, and it's going to be something I assume that would be similar to like an Atlantis or something like that. So it would make sense that there would be a kingdom under the sea here. And then the next title of Disrupted Element, of course, that makes sense because we know from that description that something is going to happen to disrupt Nia's elemental powers. So they're going to go and embark on this adventure here within the ocean, so I think that one makes sense as well. And then for WOJIRA'S Wrath, we have actually had a specific mention of this wording here within the Ninjago series, and that was back in season 11 where Sorla actually talked to Lloyd about WOJIRA'S Wrath, but it was in a different context because of course that was in the Never realm, and she was talking about like basically what was like a large canyon within like the Never realm, so she was kind of warning him about that, but not actually like specifically relating it to this. But it seems to be a very weird connection here. I mean, why would you have two things within the Ninjago universe named WOJIRA? So I'm not really too sure with that. I'm assuming that maybe there could be a way that they could potentially be connected, but I also feel like that could be kind of challenging to pull off because of course that was back in the Never realm, so I'm not sure if they're actually going to be able to travel to a different realm and then sort of connect the two of them. And I'm assuming this more so is just relating to within the Endless Ocean they're going to discover WOJIRA, and then it's going to of course have a wrath to it. So I think that would make a lot more sense within the context of SEABOUND. Then the final title here of episode 170 is Master of the Water, of course relating directly to Nia there and her kind of possibly discovering more to her elemental powers than she ever knew before, and maybe unlocking a Spinjitzu burst or something of that sort of comparison, kind of unlocking her true potential in a sort of sense. So I think that's definitely of course kind of like what that would be related to, and it makes sense here. Of course you start your journey kind of entering into these oceans, then you proceed to kind of find this sea kingdom, you have the element sort of disrupted, then you have WOJIRA'S Wrath, and then you discover that how Nia is of course the master of water, and then she discovers sort of her true potential. So I think it all sort of makes a lot of sense here within the context here of the episode title, so I definitely think that lends itself to giving it a little bit more validity as to whether or not this could be true. So that's about everything that I have to discuss here with these titles. There isn't too much more I can say, of course, with not kind of knowing how the island winds up wrapping up and how closely it's going to sort of connect into SEABOUND. So definitely a lot more things that we have to learn before we start to fully sort of like theory craft about this with some actual like valid sources, but it's definitely some very interesting information here. But now I want to hear your thoughts and opinions on these episode titles. Do you think there's validity to them, and also what do you think they could mean for the season of SEABOUND? So I want to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And for now, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like. Also subscribe as well if you would like to check out some of my other content. That would be highly appreciated. So thank you so much. I will see you all next time, and always remember, keep on collecting.